Yulo waved his hand, and the remaining flames dissipated. Then he slowly fell down and activated life returned to replenish the energy he had consumed. Although a little physical strength is a drop in the bucket, Yulo doesn't like this feeling. Redfield survived the disaster and expressed his gratitude to Yulo. Yulo just nodded in response. Redfield was also very sensible and had no choice but to take the first step. As time passed, the lost crew members gradually regained their consciousness. The scene not long ago had a great impact on the mind. The crew rested for a while and continued to carry the treasure. This is the last batch of treasure. Yulo said a few words and then jumped into the air. He wants the royal family of the Flower Kingdom to completely disappear into the sea. In a blink of an eye, Yulo arrived, above the Flower King's palace. As he raised his hand, he pressed the swastika in his palm. As the green fire swastika fell, it covered the entire palace. The boundless flames rendered the sky blue. The people in the Kingdom of Flowers couldn't help but look up. Look, what is that? There was such a big green fire, the sky changed color. Boom. As the crowd exclaimed, the green fire swastika was pressed down. The huge palace was no longer glorious in the past and turned into ruins. All members of the royal family in the palace were buried here without exception. Snort. Yulo snorted coldly, turned around and left in the air. The news about the extermination of the Flower King's royal family was also spread by interested people. After Yulo returned to the ship, he set sail directly and returned to Beehive Island. As for Ronnie and Al, let's follow Alot for the time being and practice on a desert island. 5 days later, we returned to Beehive Island successfully. At the bay, a large number of sailors were carrying treasures. Ha 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 ha, you did a good job. There was a burst of laughter from the phone bug in Yulo's hand. With these treasures, we can upgrade our weapons and equipment and exchange them for a lot of devil fruit. We will have enough confidence in the decisive battle with Marine and world government. I have already arranged this matter. You just need to practice hard and guide the crew by the way. After Rox finished speaking, he hung up the phone. What he was investigating now had some clues. The next step is to grab it and prepare for the decisive battle. Gia ha ha ha. Yulo can do it. The treasure brought back by one person is more than the 3 of our teams combined. Golden Lion Shaki was excited and couldn't help laughing when he saw the treasures on the boat. These treasures will be exchanged for resources, which will enhance the strength of the entire pirate group, including his crew members. Do you need to tell me, Shaki? This is the treasure of the Ice Continent. The 8 treasures navy has been passed down for more than 10 generations, which is comparable to the wealth of a great country's gold in the sky. I didn't expect Captain Rox to snatch it away. John on the side said enviously, feeling really sad. He loves money as much as his life and has been coveting it for a long time. I had always thought about finding an opportunity to grab it. Unexpectedly, Rox struck first, so he had no complaints. John glanced at Yulo with sour eyes. To be honest, he was very envious that such a huge treasure was given to Yulo alone. I don't know if Yulo has embezzled it for himself. If it were him, he would definitely keep some of it for himself. Okay, John, don't be sour. These treasures belong to the whole group. When the time comes, they will be exchanged for resources, and they will be yours. Silver Axe saw John's slight expression, so he spoke to remind him. At this critical moment, no one is allowed to have emotions towards one of his own. Speaking of which, if you grab a treasure, there will be quite a lot of noise. Turning his head, Silver Axe took out the newspaper and said helplessly. When they saw the newspaper, they thought Yulo's mission was to destroy the Flower Country. Just as they were wondering, Yulo came back with the treasure. Only then did everyone realize that Yulo had also been plundered. As for destroying the Kingdom of Flowers, it was just the king who provoked him and did it conveniently. Gu la la la, I just went to grab a treasure and destroyed the Kingdom of Flowers. This kind of behavior is truly worthy of Yulo. Whitebeard Newgate smiled nonchalantly. He was completely immune to what Yulo had done. And he also knew that Yulo was destroying the royal family. Not a hair was hurt on the common people. Hey hey hey, we are pirates. Don't you think this is very consistent with the style of pirates? Yulo, the person involved, joked with a nonchalant expression. After the words fell, Silver Axe, Ochaku, John and others twitched their mouths slightly. Stealing treasure is in line with pirate style. You stole the treasure and destroyed the country at the same time. You are really fierce. In Rock's Pirate, this has not been done. Otherwise, the countries on the sea may be completely wiped out. In these 10 days, you not only robbed the treasure, but also destroyed the Kingdom of Flowers. Marine and the world government received the news and were probably so angry that their faces turned green. However, Shiki agreed very much and took over the conversation excitedly. When he thought of that scene, he felt particularly happy. No matter how angry they are, they have to endure it for the time being. We are accumulating strength to improve the strength of the entire group. Marine and world government are also secretly accumulating strength. But you may not have thought that this time, besides me, there is also CP0 Admiral who is trying to grab the treasure of the ice continent. Thinking of CP0's behavior, Yulo sneered. These words shocked everyone and they couldn't help but think deeply. It seems that in order to deal with us, the world government will use any means necessary. Silver Axe frowned and said solemnly, as Rock's pirate gets stronger and stronger, Marine and world government will also become more and more targeted. The current situation seems to indicate that the world government has made up its mind. Prepare to use all your strength to fight Rock's pirate. It's useless to think so much. It's better to practice hard and use the soldiers to cover up the water and the earth. Yulo looked around at everyone and expressed his thoughts. The decisive battle is inevitable. If the so-called decisive battle is the battle of the Valley of Gods, then Silver Axe and others will not be able to escape this disaster. If you improve your strength now, there might be a glimmer of hope. The chat ended here, and Silver Axe and others left one after another. As for the follow-up matters, Rox has already arranged it. Rock's pirate, Yulo, the green flame sword god, robbed the treasure of the ice continent. The news that the royal family of the Flower King was wiped out spread like wildfire across the sea. Naval headquarters, Marineford. Large areas of ruins have been cleared. The construction of the new office building, Crescent Bay and Plaza, has just begun. During this period, the office location was moved to the rear residence. Garp, Sengoku, Zephyr, Crane and others can only conduct secret training on the back island. In the huge naval headquarters, only Kong, Quincy, and Herman are left in charge of the overall situation. In the temporary marshal's office, Kong is sitting at the desk. Admiral Quincy, Herman, are all on this list. Right now, there are only 3 of them who are qualified to participate in high-level meetings. Yulo from Rock's Pirate went to grab the treasure of the ice continent, and we don't even have any news. Admiral Herman clenched his fists and spoke angrily. Their marine intelligence officers have been monitoring Beehive Island. But I don't know why, they didn't get any news about the Rock's Pirate operation. Now that Rock's Pirate has obtained the treasure of the ice continent, it will definitely be exchanged for a large amount of resources, and the strength of the entire group will be increased again. Admiral Quincy's expression didn't look good. The stronger the Rock's Pirate, the less likely they are to win. But now, it's too late. The enemy's strength has greatly increased, and it's already a certainty. You two, stop complaining. When Rox returns to Beehive Island, the 5 elders will directly issue an order to transfer all the investigators back. As a marshal, Kong behaved very calmly and told the reason for the delay in intelligence. What does it mean? Why do you do this? Quincy and Herman were stunned, and their expressions softened. However, I am still very surprised by 5 elders' approach. The more critical a situation is, the more important information is. If you do this, you will lose the opportunity. The matter of the ice continent treasure has very serious consequences. If they receive the news, they will ambush and intercept it in advance. Although I can't defeat Yulo, wouldn't it be better if I could get the treasure and avoid entering the Rock's Pirate? I don't know the specific situation. The 5 elders only said that the plan has started. I guess it must be part of the plan. Kong pondered for a moment and then had no choice but to speak. The 5 elders were so tight-lipped that even after asking for a long time, they couldn't figure it out. Kong's words made Quincy and Herman's eyes light up. You don't have to look at me, I don't know anything just like you. The only news I received is about the matter in the ice continent. In addition to Yulo, there is also Admiral from CP0. As Kong spoke, his eyes flickered a few times. This news was not told to him by the 5 elders. I don't know why, that's all I can say. After all, people at naval headquarters were very anxious during this period. Even the 2 admirals and him, the marshal, were no exception. It seems that what the 5 elders said is true, the world government has already started to take action. After hearing these words, Quincy and Herman felt a little relieved. The world government started to take action. They finally had a helping hand and no longer had to worry. But what they didn't know was that CP0 who appeared in the ice continent was not there for Yulo. It's just the same goal, a pure coincidence. Meanwhile, world government. Marijoy, deep in Pangu City, among the flowers. The five elders, the most powerful people in the world government who control the overall plan, entered this mysterious place. In a dark and empty palace, 20 broken swords were stuck vertically on the floor. And on the steps facing these broken swords, there is a throne shaped like a sharp sword. The golden outline and the bright red leather make it look majestic and domineering. However, at this time, there was a person sitting on the throne, his whole body shrouded in darkness. Lord, I am. 5 elders, come and meet us. Respectful voices came from outside the palace gate. The man on the throne is none other than the king of the celestial dragons, I am. The real power behind world government. I am slowly opened her eyes, revealing scarlet eyeballs. The moment he opened his eyes, 5 elders seemed to feel it. The 5 people straightened up and slowly pushed the door open and entered. Lord, I am. The plan has started smoothly, the eternal pointer has been released, and Rox has entered the game. The 5 elders came to the foot of the steps, bowed respectfully and said. At this time, 5 elders' body has recovered as before in just half a month. This shows that there is an ulterior motive deep within the world government. How are you getting ready? I am didn't open her mouth, her voice was clear and audible. Everything is ready, just waiting for the day of sacrifice. The 5 elders lowered their heads and responded quickly. However, that Yulo is a little tricky. 5 elders hesitated for a moment and then said truthfully. It's no wonder that they are there. Yulo's natural combat power is really incredible. His appearance is indeed an anomaly, affecting the progress of history. However, the influence is still weak. The one who really has the influence is the descendant of the D family, Rox. I am closed her eyes again, as if talking to herself. I will use secret methods to enhance your strength. I hope that the 5 of you can clear away the ashes of the times before you abdicate. I am stood up slowly and waved his sleeves slightly. The burning lights went out and the palace became dark. 5 elders stayed among the flowers for 3 full days. It was not until 3 days later that the 5 people were full of energy and walked out of the flowers. Before I knew it, a month had passed. During this time, all forces on the sea, kingdoms and pirate groups. They all seemed to be aware of the undercurrent and were watching the situation change in a tacit understanding. Rox pirate, marine and world government, on the other hand, have not made any move, and are terrifyingly quiet. Rox pirate, its power coverage has shrunk across the board and is concentrated in the waters near Beehive Island. On Beehive Island, the entire crew of the regiment was practicing in an orderly manner after obtaining resources. Apart from the news about Captain Rox, the movements of marine and world government, he doesn't care about anything else. On the day Yulo returned, he separated from the other cadres. With the Golden Lion Shiki, Whitebeard Newgate, he started training for improvement. In addition to drinking and eating meat every day, I just practice, and practice again. Newgate's new move, Spiral Shockwave, has been mastered, and his strength has improved significantly. During the sparring session with Shiki was suppressed at every turn, which made Shiki very angry. At Shiki's strong request, Yulo had no choice but to talk about his swordsmanship experience during the battle. If the strength of Shiki and others improves, it will only be good for Rox pirate. Originally, what Shiki wanted to improve was Lionfruit's ability. However, Lionfruit's ability is more auxiliary in combat. On the contrary, the improvement of swordsmanship makes you more lethal in battle. With Yulo, an encyclopedia of swordsmanship, Shiki's understanding of swordsmanship has deepened a lot, and his mastery of swordsmanship has been further improved. This made Silver Axe, Ochaku and other cadres jealous and envious. In the last 10 days, a huge battle broke out. Silver Axe, Ochaku, John, Linlin, Kaido and others were beaten to pieces again and again under the combined pressure of Yulo, Shiki, and Newgate. However, it is precisely this kind of oppression, coupled with Yulo's training experience, Silver Axe, John, and Ochaku that have significantly improved their strength. Although it is not as good as Shiki and Newgate, compared with them before, this improvement cannot be underestimated. Linlin, the youngest, and Kaido both have penultimate talents. After 10 days of pressure training, the strength has improved most obviously, and they have all reached the peak of Vice Admiral, 1 step away from the Admiral level. But even if it is 1 step away, it will be difficult to break through in a short time. Of course, the one whose strength has improved the most is the monster like Yulo. He has already mastered some of the secrets of the 6th style taijutsu. As for the Qinglian Earth Heartfire, his feeling in training is that the upper limit may be higher and the progress of training is slower. Until now, only a few advanced skills have been mastered, let alone top-level skills. So for a month, he mainly trained in swordsmanship. By understanding the experiences of top swordsmen, you can then develop the skills of the swordsmanship encyclopedia. Keep practicing, sword after sword, over and over without stopping. Yulo successfully mastered the secrets of several sword skills. World government uses its foundation to enhance its strength. The entire crew of Rock's Pirate is also working hard to improve themselves. Time flies very fast, 1 month has just passed. On this day, a piece of news came from the underground world at sea. The captain of the Rock's Pirate, the overlord of the new world, Rox, appearing alone in a certain underground family. With overwhelming combat power, he slaughtered the family and then walked away. According to the rumors, Rox stole something from the underground force. As soon as this news came out, the undercurrent of the situation became even more volatile. All major underground forces, kingdoms and pirate groups were shocked. What kind of treasure is worthy of Rox personally taking action? However, while I was shocked, I was just curious. Apart from Marine and world government, no one would have the guts to rob Rox stuff. However, what puzzles all parties is that the news has spread across the sea. Marine and world government, however, made no move. Beehive Island. The Rocks are back. Skeleton Castle, Conference Hall. All cadres sat at the conference table. Naturally, they also knew the news on the sea. Newgate, Shaki, Silver Axe and others all had solemn expressions on their faces. Everything that is happening now is actually not difficult to guess, and something big is going to be announced. Yulo sat in his seat with a calm expression on the surface. In fact, deep down, I was also very curious about what Rox had stolen. Although he had some vague guesses, Rox didn't say anything, so he couldn't be sure. At this time, deep in the skeleton castle, Rox came out. News from the underground world. A large number of celestial dragons will come to the Valley of the Gods to hold a grand sacrifice, and the time will be just 1 month from now. He sat down on the main seat, held 2 things, and said straight to the point. Lots of celestial dragons. When the cadres heard this, they immediately became interested. Valley of the Gods. Newgate, Shaki is relatively young and has not heard of this place. This place sounds familiar. Yes. I have an impression too, but I just can't remember it. And Silver Axe, John, Ochaku, an older generation of pirates, recalled it for a moment, touched their chin and thought in thought. They have followed Rox for the longest time and have an in-depth understanding of world government. But after recalling it, I still can't remember it. Yulo's pupils shrank slightly when he heard these 2 words. He knew this place very well, the place where Rox fell. Sure enough, the so-called decisive battle was the Battle of the Valley of the Gods. Rox Pirate fights Marine, Roger and others. Eventually Rox fell and Rox Pirate disbanded. Garp and Roger joined forces to kill Rox. One is called a Marine hero, and the other begins his journey to become the Pirate King. These 3 words Valley of the Gods made everyone fall into deep thought. You don't have to think about it. I have mentioned it occasionally, but I only know the place name. Glancing at Silver Axe and the others, Rox said calmly. Then, he put something on the table in front of him. During the last attack on naval headquarters, in their confidential archives, I found this fragment of an ancient book, which roughly recorded the Valley of the Gods. Although the recorded information is quite limited, it can be determined that it should be the birthplace of celestial dragons. Rox pointed at the broken leaf, glanced at everyone, and expressed his judgment. This island I've never heard of is actually the birthplace of celestial dragons. Newgate, Shaki, Silver Axe and others looked over curiously. But they immediately looked away. They couldn't understand the text on the remaining pages. The birthplace of celestial dragons. Yulo's eyes were lowered, a bright light flashed faintly, and he thought to himself. This real Valley of the Gods was within his expectations and one of the few he had guessed. Then where is this Valley of the Gods? I have been sailing on the sea for decades, but I have never seen it before. Silver Axe narrowed his eyes slightly and rubbed his chin. Newgate, Shaki and others were also very interested and looked at Rox one after another. Yulo is very thoughtful. Since it is the birthplace of celestial dragons, how can the world government let others discover it easily? This is exactly the purpose of my trip to sea, Rox said, putting another thing in front of everyone. This is Eternal Pointer. Shaki recognized him immediately, his voice full of surprise. The other cadres looked suddenly enlightened. Something Rox grabbed was probably the needle of eternity. Only when it comes to secrets related to celestial dragons or world government, Rox takes action personally. Yes, this is the eternal pointer of the Valley of Gods. According to the news from the underground world, there will be a large number of celestial dragons present on the day of the Valley of Gods sacrifice. The forbearance of Marine in the world government is probably just waiting for this day. This is not one or two celestial dragons, but dozens or even hundreds at least. Such a large group of celestial dragons, first kneeling down to beg for mercy, and finally turned into corpses, I feel excited just thinking about it. Rox said. His expression began to change, and then he smiled ferociously. These celestial dragons have been staying in Marie Joy's for years. As if isolated from the world, it is not easy to meet one or two. Even if Rox is extremely powerful, the number of celestial dragons he has killed cannot exceed 10 fingers. Rox continued to smile ferociously, and the officers present couldn't help but get excited when they heard this. Captain Rox, in this situation, the celestial dragons are going to the Valley of the Gods to worship. I think there's something fishy inside, so I'd better take a look at the situation for now. Yulo thought for a long time before he came up with this sentence, a more euphemistic wording. Newgate, Shiki, Silver Axe, Ochaku and others looked at Yulo in surprise. After so many cadre meetings, Yulo always remained silent. After arranging the action, going to sea will be a big battle. Not only did he take the initiative to speak this time, but it was easy to hear that he was trying to persuade Rox. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and the Valley of the Gods is the battlefield for the decisive battle. Rox suddenly smiled, then shook his head and said lightly. His tone was very firm. He really didn't want to lose any chance to kill so many celestial dragons. Since the destruction of naval headquarters, world governments have become wary. If you want to rely on surprise attacks to hit the holy land of Marie Joy's, the chance is already very small. Yulo opened his mouth, then closed it again. I want to persuade him again, but I don't know how. Gia ha ha ha, don't worry about this. I'm just killing a group of celestial dragons and having a battle with them. It's not like we have to fight to the death. Shiki on the side laughed loudly and patted Yulo on the shoulder. The battle at naval headquarters made Shiki's confidence soar. Gla la la la, let alone the naval headquarters, even if the 5 elders come, they will not pose a threat to us. Even Newgate laughed. Rox Pirate's strength made him fearless of anyone on the sea. Seeing Newgate, Shiki spoke. Yulo was helpless and sighed inwardly. If these two guys knew about the Valley of the Gods, Rox would be in danger of falling. How can you still speak so carelessly? All the cadres present thought that the so-called decisive battle was just a way for Marine and world government to feel proud and stabilize people's hearts due to the unstable situation at sea. But unaware of this war, Marine and the world government would join forces with the pirates to destroy Rox. Since this battle is the general trend, let's fight the Valley of Gods as soon as possible. This cadre meeting is also to make some preparations. When I came back, first found that Marine and world government spies had begun monitoring Beehive Island in all directions. The meeting returned to the main topic. Rox nodded and said with a smile. That's why Rox is sure the news is true. When he went to sea a month ago, there were not that many spies in the outer waters around Beehive Island. Marine and world government, how dare you spy on us? John, Ochaku and others had a fierce look in their eyes. Captain Rox, do you want to take them? Silver Axe's eyes flashed with murderous intent, and he made a gesture of wiping his neck. On normal days, they might not bother to care. At this critical moment, it's better to be on the safe side. Don't worry about them. Don't let this matter be spread out for the time being. Everything on the crew remains as usual. Misleading Marine and the world government, asking them to relax their vigilance, and then wait until the Valley of the Gods a month later to catch them off guard. Rox thought for a moment and then ordered seriously. No matter what means Marine and world government are preparing, Rox Pirate's approach, at least, doesn't do any harm. There is still 1 month left, so work harder to improve your strength. Especially Yulo, you don't have to do anything but get stronger. Rox laughed and said. Yulo is now the hope of Rox Pirate. As long as Yulo's strength reaches his level, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Rox Pirate's senior management strength has doubled. The cadres present nodded and agreed with Rox's words. Time flies, and the Battle of the Valley of Gods is getting closer and closer. The people of Rox Pirate have been staying on Beehive Island, seemingly isolated from the world. The entire crew was training in an orderly manner as before. Yulo, Shiki, Nugate, Silver Axe and other cadres are also working hard to practice. Apart from eating and sleeping every day, I stopped hanging out and drank. Even Captain Rocks would get involved sometimes, one man fighting all the cadres. During this period of time, Marine was not idle either. A group of elite soldiers were drawn from branches across the sea. Gathered at naval headquarters, trained personally by the elite vice admiral. At this time, Marineford Back Island, an open-air training ground. Sengoku and Zephyr are doing secret training while making strange poses. After a long time, the two stopped, breathing heavily. Sengoku, Zephyr, congratulations, training is completed. Herman, who had been supervising, clapped his hands and said with a smile. He looked at Sengoku and Zephyr with a look of satisfaction on his face, but he couldn't help but sigh. Back then, when he was young, it took him half a year to undergo Marine special training. Now, Sengoku and Zephyr have completed special training in only 3.5 months. Sengoku, great, we're done training. Zephyr looked delighted when he heard this and looked at Sengoku beside him. Yes. After 3.5 months, it's finally completed. Sengoku's voice was a little dazed, but the light in his eyes did not diminish at all. No one knows how much they have paid in these 3.5 months. The special training was extremely difficult, even with their physiques. You can also become exhausted after a long day of training. However, when they learned again and again that Yulo's strength was improving at a rapid pace. In order not to be left too far behind, they gritted their teeth and decided to increase the amount of special training. They originally completed 3 days of training in 2 days, and they were so exhausted every day that they were delirious. I persisted like this until today, and finally completed the special training. All this is for justice, their justice, Marine's justice. Senior Herman, when will the operation begin? Sengoku raised his head, looked at Herman, and asked. The operation in the Valley of Gods was the time to show the results of their 3 months of training. Zephyr also stopped laughing and looked at Herman. Sengoku was looking forward to it, and so was he. If nothing else happens, it should be within the next few days. Herman's face became serious and he said in a deep voice. Just a few days ago, the 5 elders had ordered the naval headquarters to make full preparations. Is that so? It seems that our training was completed at the right time. Sengoku was stunned when he heard this, but then he understood and a smile appeared on his face. Such a coincidence of time is simply destined. Just after completing the training, they encountered the decisive battle, and this was the battle they had been waiting for. Rock's pirate, and that Yulo. No one can escape this time, we will destroy you all. Zephyr's eyes were firm and he clenched his fists tightly. Zephyr still remembers the battle with Yulo, it was his shame. It was even more derelict of his duty to let the Rock's pirate take away the heavenly gold. Therefore, in this action, he wanted to avenge his previous shame. Although Zephyr knows very well that even with his current strength, he is no match for Yulo. But as long as he goes all out, he believes that Rock's pirate will be defeated in front of the righteous army. By the way, Herman Senpai, where is Garp? Suddenly, Sengoku spoke and looked at Herman. A few days ago, with Herman's consent, Garp left first. You're talking about Garp, he completed training a few days ago. After applying to me, I went to practice alone. Herman recalled it and informed Sengoku and Zephyr. To be honest, he couldn't figure out why Garp, who participated in the training, completed the training before Sengoku and Zephyr. Huh. It was completed a few days ago. Sengoku and Zephyr were both stunned. That guy Garp is really awesome. Immediately, the two came back to their senses and couldn't help but praise. When Sengoku and Zephyr, and Admiral Herman, talk about Garp. Garp, the person involved, is on an empty island outside Marineford, conducting his own training. He stood in front of a big mountain and punched it one after another without using any abilities. Until now, in the past few days, Garp has been punching hard, shaking the hard mountain. At this moment, a small warship docked on the shore. The rear admiral following Garp waved wildly at Garp. Mr. Garp, there is news from headquarters, all vice admirals and above are gathering. Call. Garp's punching speed gradually slowed down until it stopped completely. Okay, got it. One last punch and then we go back. After Garp calmed down, he waved his hand to signal. Then he turned around and took a deep breath. He punched the mountain in front of him with one punch. It looks like there is no haki, no fruit abilities, and no taijutsu. Just this ordinary punch, the next moment directly shattered the mountain. Boom. Razed to the ground. Yes, not bad. Let's go. Return. On the boat, while Marine was shocked, Garp's figure appeared on the boat. The battle in the Valley of the Gods is coming, and Marine is gathering and preparing for the battle. On the edge of the New World, on a remote island. The Jackson docked on the shore and its crew gathered on the beach. While drinking and eating meat, they talked about the world and looked into the depths of the island from time to time. I saw thunder rolling and roaring deep in the island. Continuous mountains collapsed and dense trees broke. And this group of crew members behaved very leisurely as they drank, ate, and chatted. After half a day, the roar disappeared and the island stopped shaking. 7 or 8 figures walked out of the depths of the island in high spirits. Some were topless, some had tattered clothes, and some were even wearing only trousers. The 4 figures headed by them exuded a strong sense of oppression with every step and every breath. The distance was still far, and the crew members on the shore still felt the pressure. As the distance got closer, the 4 of them regained their momentum. Captain Roger, Rayleigh, Jabba, Bullet. When the mountain of oppression dissipated, the crew members were relieved and greeted each other warmly. Ha 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 ha, everyone is here. Roger smiled as he walked, came to the crew, and sat down on the ground. Gurgling. He picked up the wine bottle on the ground and started pouring it into his mouth. Rayleigh, Jabba, and Bullet were also sitting on the floor, eating and drinking. The past 2 months of training have been tiring and boring, which really frustrates them. Ha! So refreshing. Roger drank it all in one gulp and poured 3 more bottles in a row, making a happy sound before he felt satisfied. In the past 2 months, has there been any movement at sea? Roger put down the flask and asked the crew. Rayleigh, Jabba, and Bullet also pricked up their ears. The crew member in charge of intelligence squinted his eyes and recalled a little, and organized his words. A month ago, Rox went to sea in person. The story of Rox destroying an underground force was narrated by his crew member. Roger, Rayleigh and others frowned when they heard this. Marine and world government, no action. Rayleigh thought for a moment and asked his doubts. Not only was there no movement, it was terrifyingly silent. The crew member answered truthfully. Rayleigh frowned, lost in thought. Any more? Jabba asked next. This was sent by Marine a few days ago. It is said that the battlefield is in the Valley of the Gods, and the day of action will be notified separately. The crew member took out something and handed it to Jabba and the others. This is a permanent pointer. Where is the Valley of the Gods? Rayleigh, Jabba, and Bullet were all stunned when they saw the permanent pointer. Can Rox Pirate find such a hidden place? Roger's pupils shrank slightly when he heard the words, Valley of Gods. Valley of the Gods. Roger murmured to himself, his eyes twinkling. He knew this place, but he didn't know where it was. In order to eliminate the Rox Pirate, the world government not only cooperated with him as a pirate, but also took out the permanent pointers. It's really unscrupulous, no matter the cost. Don't think about it. This Valley of the Gods is the birthplace of celestial dragons. Roger looked at his friends, lost in thought, and laughed as he said he had freed them. Even he, a descendant of the D clan, only knew a little bit about it. I see. World government is really, tisk tisk. Rayleigh, Jabba, Bullet, and everyone else suddenly realized. No wonder they have never heard of it, it turns out to be the birthplace of celestial dragons. Naturally, the hidden place of this kind of world government cannot be easily discovered. Okay, let's go. Let's set off from the Valley of the Gods and take a look at the outer waters first. Roger stood up and waved his big hand forward. The crew got into action, packed up their stuff, and set sail. After 2 months of dormant training, the Roger pirates officially set out for the Valley of Gods. And on the other side, Beehive Island, Rox Pirate. The cadres stopped practicing and went to the conference room one after another. Along the way, the island's crew members trained in an orderly manner. Although they didn't know what was going to happen, they knew that becoming stronger was the right thing to do. At this time, all the cadres were present in the conference room. Rox sat in the main seat and looked around at all the cadres. My undercover agent in Marine sent word that Naval Headquarters has been assembled. We will go to Marie Joy's tomorrow and officially set off for the Valley of the Gods the day after tomorrow. Rox said straight to the point. Gia ha ha ha, are you here so soon? Golden Lion Shaki, no longer smoking a cigar, smiled excitedly and expectantly. After we return, select elite crew members, interns and ordinary crew members to stay on the island. This is all done in secret, don't let Marine spies notice. Rox began to give instructions, his expression serious. The meeting was very simple and ended quickly. Newgate, Shaki, Silver Axe and others started drinking and eating meat after they returned. But in reality, the selection of an elite crew is already underway. You guys are busy, I'll leave first. Yulo shrugged, expressing his helplessness. He was always alone and had no crew at all. So, this trouble has nothing to do with him. Newgate, Shaki, Silver Axe and others also agree very much. So what if Yulo doesn't have a crew? Yulo's combat power alone is comparable to that of several cadres, not to mention a few crew members. At night, vision is dim. Take advantage of this good opportunity. The cadres successfully selected the elite crew members for this battle. These elite crews, led by Linlin and Kaido, fight in the lower and middle classes. These two have greatly improved in strength, but they are still too reluctant to fight against Admiral. We can only arrange this, lead the elite crew, and block the Vice Admiral's combat power. Yulo and other cadres, Captain Rocks, are in charge of the Admiral combat force. The day passed quickly. Today is the day when the celestial dragons go to the Valley of Gods to offer sacrifices. The entire sky was covered with dark clouds, and no trace of sunlight could be seen. Naval Headquarters fleet arrived at Redline as early as yesterday. 12 warships are displayed in the port, as well as a very large luxury ship. On the marine warship, Marshal Kong, Admiral Quincy, Herman. Led by Garp, Sengoku, Zephyr, and 10 elite vice admirals. Marshal Kong, in the decisive battle with Rock's pirate. Why are you bringing so many celestial dragons? They are just a bunch of burdens. On the main ship, Garp learned of the situation and couldn't help complaining to Kong. He originally hated celestial dragons and didn't want to see any celestial dragons. There are a total of 50 celestial dragons accompanying him right now. Garp felt very uncomfortable, if not for the destruction of the Rock's pirate. With so many celestial dragons appearing, he would never go. If there weren't so many celestial dragons, do you think Rocks would take this risk? Kong asked back and glanced at Garp faintly. In fact, Kong also knows that Garp is a member of the D-clan, and the celestial dragon's style is terrible, so it is reasonable to hate them. But there is nothing we can do about the current situation, without such an admiral in combat power. On the battlefield, their chances of winning will be reduced by a few points. When Garp heard this, he curled his lips and said nothing. At this time, under the leadership of 5 elders, a large group of celestial dragons boarded the luxurious ship. It looked like there were 50 people, with 100 slaves. This group of celestial dragons are all extremely arrogant, with their nostrils pointing to the sky, looking arrogant. Some of them were even drooling and had runny noses, which made Garp feel sick and turned his head away. Following the celestial dragons on the ship, there were also a large number of CP0 members. 5 elders stood on the bow of the ship, right next to the main ship of the marine fleet. Lord 5 elders. Kong nodded from the distance, while a hint of surprise flashed in his heart. Even Quincy and Herman couldn't help but narrow their eyes. These 5 old men not only recovered from their injuries, but the aura they exuded seemed to be a bit stronger. Garp, Zephyr, and Sengoku felt the momentum and had the same idea in their hearts. 5 elders, very strong, stronger than them. Even if they have undergone special training and their strength has reached the admiral level. But the aura it exudes is still a bit weaker than that of 5 elders. As this 5 elders. The marine soldiers on other warships couldn't help but become nervous when they saw the 5 elders for the first time. The 5 elders nodded slightly and were about to speak. Suddenly, he was interrupted by the voice of celestial dragons. This sacrifice is very important, can we let Marine and this bunch of losers protect us? Marine is getting worse and worse. That Admiral Herman, because of his improper protection, caused 2 members of the family to fall into the hands of some pirate group some time ago. These words directly caused the soldiers to break through their defenses. All of them looked ugly and were trembling with anger. They dared not speak in anger. Even Herman himself could only grit his teeth and endure. But Garp was instantly angry. You guys. Garp. But as soon as Garp opened his mouth, Kong scolded him back. On the contrary, this group of celestial dragons has become even more aggressive. You are that Garp. What kind of bullshit D-clan? How dare you yell at us? Not just that Herman, but this Garp, and what Sengoku, Zephyr. The pirates would have stolen all the gold in the escort, causing us to lose so much treasure. The celestial dragons said something to each other, which made everyone in Marine look as ugly as if they had eaten shit. It has indeed been Marine's dereliction of duty all this time. As a result, The gold in the sky was robbed and the celestial dragons were killed. But Marine also protected the celestial dragons. But these celestial dragons in front of them didn't regard them as human beings at all. Kong could hardly stand the constant cynicism, but he could only swallow it. There is no other reason. It is Marine's duty to protect the celestial dragons. Garp gritted his teeth, and Sengoku and Zephyr were so angry that their veins popped out, and they pressed their hands on Garp's shoulders. If they were just a bunch of pure trash, they wouldn't be worthy of Marine's protection. However, they are the celestial dragons, descendants of the founders of the world government. Even if Marine is ridiculed, he can only continue to protect them. World government has ruled for 800 years, and this idea has been deeply ingrained in Marines of all generations. That's enough, shut up. The 5 elders finally spoke and glared at the celestial dragons. Seeing this, the celestial dragons shut up obediently. The status of these 5 people is higher than them, and they dare not disobey. How are you preparing? The 5 elders turned around and asked Kong. Everything's ready. Kong took a deep breath, calmed down his emotions, and responded to the 5 elders. The faces of the Marines behind him softened after their ears became quiet. Rock's pirate. What's going on? The leader, the old man with glasses, asked after thinking. The spies have been keeping an eye on it, and there is nothing unusual yet. Kong said truthfully. Well, let's go. The bespectacled old man's eyes flickered, and he finally ordered the fleet to set sail. Kong, Herman, Quincy, Garp, Sengoku, Zephyr, 10 elite vice admirals, and 10,000 elite marine soldiers. 5 elders, a group of CP0 members, 50 celestial dragons, and 100 slaves of various races. 12 warships formed a circle, guarding the celestial dragon's ship as it sailed toward the Valley of the Gods. After the marine fleet set off, Rox received the news. With lightning speed, he cleared out all the spies around him. Captain Rox, Yulo and other cadres, 10,000 elite pirates. With Shiki's lion fruit ability, head straight to the Valley of Gods silently. The Valley of the Gods is located in the sea, not far from Marie Joy's. The marine fleet guarded the ship, and guided by the permanent pointer, it sailed at normal speed for a day and a night. On the morning of the second day, the fleet sailed into a mysterious sea area. The 5 elders, Kong, Admiral and others clearly saw the island that appeared in front of them. Valley of the Gods, the birthplace of celestial dragons. A mysterious island not marked on the charts. Behind the island, there is a high mountain, like a sharp sword, reaching straight into the sky. The large fleet docked, and the 5 elders, Kong and others were the first to get off the ship. On the celestial dragon's luxury ship, CP0 began to move things. It was not until the transportation was completed that the 50 celestial dragons set foot on the Valley of the Gods. 100 slaves of all races, driven by CP0, followed the celestial dragons off the ship like zombies. When we got to the luxurious ship, everyone and everything got off. Kong waved his hand, and 10,000 elite marine soldiers began to move and arrange themselves. On the seashore, 12 warships were lined up in a row, and all the forts were aimed at the sea. There were also a large number of mobile forts that were transported off the ship by marine soldiers. On the land of the Valley of Gods, they are also lined up. The cannon barrels as big as bowls were aimed at all around. Then 2,000 marine soldiers stayed on the warship. 8,000 marine soldiers landed and formed a circular array along the arranged forts. From front to back, from left to right, protect the celestial dragons in the middle. Herman and Garp stood far away, looking at the celestial dragons and feeling disgusted. We've finally arrived, we're so bored. The young celestial dragons complained and came to the center of the Valley of the Gods. Staying on the boat for a day and a night was very frustrating for them. If they are not the older generation of celestial dragons, they must participate in the sacrifice. They are not willing to come to such a place where birds don't poop, even if it is the birthplace of celestial dragons. Kong, 5 elders, standing side by side, they took stock of their surroundings. Then the released observation hockey. All the slightest movement on the island can be seen at a glance. For the time being, there was no one on the island except them. There is no movement from Rock's pirate. Did they give up this opportunity? Kong took back observation hockey, his tone full of confusion. According to Rock's style, whenever celestial dragons appears, he will never let it go. What's more, this time, there are 50 celestial dragons, which is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Carry out the sacrifice first, and keep alert at the same time. The spies under surveillance can't keep an eye on Rox yet. The leader, the old man with glasses, said lightly. Rox is not a fool, so why would he act recklessly? Yes. Kong's eyes darkened, he became alert, and nodded in response. Behind him, Quincy, Herman, Garp and others were also on alert, always on alert. The members of CP0, under the command of celestial dragons, began to prepare for the sacrificial ceremony. Time passed little by little, and nothing unusual happened on the island. Members of CP0 dug a hole in the ground, a very large pit. It is 10 meters deep, 20 meters long, and 20 meters wide. At this point, the preparations for the sacrifice seemed to be over. This scene made everyone in Marine have questions on their faces. The CP0 members who dug the hole bent down and reported to Celestial Dragons. Celestial Dragons said something, and the CP0 members turned around and continued to act. They drove 100 slaves to the edge of the pit and stood around the pit one by one. The CP0 members stood in a large circle around the slaves and surrounded them. Ha 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 ha, the sacrifice is about to begin. Great Creator God, accept our gift. The Celestial Dragons laughed, a little crazy and a little twisted. This gave everyone in Marine who was watching a bad feeling. What do you want to do by digging such a big hole and letting the slaves stand on the edge? Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr and others frowned slightly. The laughter of this group of Celestial Dragons was very harsh. The sacrifice begins. The leading Celestial Dragons were the first to walk over. Behind him, the other Celestial Dragons followed, one after another. Kneel down. On the edge of the pit, a circle of CP0 members pressed the slave's shoulders and kicked him until he knelt down. This scene made everyone in Marine's expressions darken. At this time, the other side of the island. Roger, Rayleigh and others also landed on the island one after another. They were far away, observing with binoculars, their eyes looking a little solemn. The sacrifices of the Celestial Dragons made them feel uncomfortable. 50 Celestial Dragons stood on the outermost edge surrounding the members of CP0. They took off their bubble hoods, tasted the air outside, and all frowned. However, the Celestial Dragons are actually enduring. Led by the leader Celestial Dragons, everyone was doing strange actions. His mouth was also slurred and he said incomprehensible words. After a long time, the action ended and the sound suddenly stopped. The weak Celestial Dragons were too tired to stand upright. Dragging heavy steps, he left the place of sacrifice. Marine, Roger and others have been watching everything. Seeing this scene, they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Just as they were relaxing, the leader Celestial Dragons said something lightly. Sacrifice. As soon as he finished speaking, the CP0 members moved. I saw them raising their feet and kicking the slaves into the pit. Then he started throwing some sacrificial items into the pit. Most slaves are like zombies. However, several slaves were newly captured. They realized something and climbed up frantically. What greeted them was a heavy kick and they fell back into the pit. When this sudden scene happened, Marine, Roger and others all changed their expressions. They had already vaguely guessed what was going to happen. Sure enough, Celestial Dragons regained its breath, and its gloomy voice sounded again. Ahahaha, the time of sacrifice has finally arrived. You humble slaves, it is your greatest honor to be able to offer sacrifices to the great God of creation. Most of the slaves' eyes were dull and empty, and they stood or sat waiting to die. Only a few of them were shrouded in fear of death, with despair on their faces. After the CP0 members threw the sacrificial supplies into the pit, they began to bury the pit. Pits. Slaves. Buried. Sacrifices. Zephyr's eyes were in a trance, his mind was shocked, he was muttering to himself, he couldn't believe it all. Since he joined Marine, he has been nothing but the most vicious. He can kill most ordinary pirates without killing them. Over time, in Marine's circle, not killing became synonymous with him. So at this time, the scene in front of him made Zephyr break his defense. The sacrifices of the Celestial Dragons actually involve sacrificing human beings and burying them cruelly alive. Although it is Marine's duty to protect the Celestial Dragons, more often than not, Marine is protecting the people. However, while the Marines are protecting the people, the Celestial Dragons are killing them. Not only Zephyr, but also Sengoku, Garp and others clenched their fists and were trembling. Kong next to the 5 elders, his face became as gloomy as water, but he remained silent. The 8,000 Marine soldiers standing in formation around them felt as if their chests were blocked, and they couldn't help but take a breath. The scene in front of me is creepy and horrifying. Roger and others, who were hiding in the distance and observing secretly, also saw this scene. Ah. These celestial dragons are really worse than beasts. Jabba's violent temper came right up. He was about to rush out, but was immediately pressed down. Don't be impulsive and don't forget our purpose. Rayleigh held Jabba down with one hand and said with an ugly expression. Although they were pirates, they were not frightened by this scene. However, I still think it's a little too cruel. Even Roger endured despite his endless anger. The purpose this time is to eliminate the Rock's pirate and not to conflict with the world government. We still have to focus on the overall situation. As long as the Rock's pirate is eliminated, more people will be liberated. The CP0 members began to bury themselves, the celestial dragons laughed wildly, and the 5 elders looked indifferently. The few slaves who wanted to escape were paralyzed on the ground in despair. Lord 5 elders, why sacrifice human beings? Zephyr's eyes were bloodshot, and he couldn't hold back the feeling in his chest. Surprisingly, Marshal Kong did not stop him. 800 years of rules. Hearing this, the bespectacled old man glanced at Zephyr and said calmly. These 6 words left Zephyr speechless. No one can stop the 800-year-old rules of world government. Kong, Zephyr, Garp and others looked livid and lowered their heads silently. However, at this moment, the sky was dark, as if it were blocking out the sun. What happened? The sun's rays are gone. What's in the sky? Suddenly, Marine's attention was caught, and the soldiers looked at him in unison. At the same time, abruptly, a stream of black air descended from the sky, carrying domineering power. It pressed down directly towards the big pit and hit the CP0 members like a substance. The CP0 people who were burying them staggered and fell to the ground. The Marine soldier looked slightly shocked when he saw this. Such power as Conqueror's Haki, Kong, Herman, Quincy and others were shocked by the sudden situation. The 5 elders were also shocked and suddenly felt like they were facing a formidable enemy. Yulo, you are too impatient. You even said you would wait and see for a while. But these celestial dragons are indeed disgusting. In the sky, Golden Lion Shiki's complaints came. Yulo took the lead and floated at the front. That Conqueror's Haki is exactly what Yulo released. He looked at the scene below with anger in his eyes. Witnessing the inhumane behavior of the celestial dragons, Yulo couldn't help but feel the murderous intention in his heart. At this time, the Marine soldiers below, Kong, 5 elders and others saw the sky. A huge island floats, along with countless small clods of earth. Rox, Newgate, Shaki, Yulo and others all stood on the soil and slowly landed. Rox pirate. Coming. The faces of Kong, Herman, Quincy and others became serious as their expressions changed. It came so suddenly, without any warning. There was no news from the spies sent to monitor the situation. Just like that, without any warning, it appeared above the head. The faces of the 5 elders, Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr could not hide their shock. No one expected that Rock's pirate would appear in this way. Under the influence of Rox and Yulo, they both ignored other factors. For example, everything in front of me, the Kadri Golden Lion Shaki, the ability user of Lion Fruit. The flying island that suddenly appeared seemed to be overwhelming. It just floated above everyone's heads, blocking the sun's rays. Celestial Dragons, who was originally smiling, had a smile frozen on his face. They all hurriedly hid behind the 5 elders and others, who were really frightened. Just like that, the huge flying island floated over the Valley of Gods. A dark shadow shrouded Marine and the 5 elders. The Marine soldiers, as well as Garp, Kong and others, were ready for attack. Rox, Newgate, Yulo, Shaki, Silver Axe, John, Ochaku, Linlin, Kaido, 9 people stand on the clod. The clod stopped when it landed at low altitude, carrying Rox, Yulo and others, floating in the low altitude. They were condescending, looking down at the 5 elders and Marines below. Kong, Herman, Quincy, Garp, and the 5 elders, it seems they are all here. Rox crossed his arms and counted with an arrogant expression. He clicked on the Admiral's combat power below one by one. The auras of these 5 old guys have become much stronger. Yulo was condescending, his eyes indifferent to those below. His observation Haki has reached the top level. He immediately sensed the change in the aura of the 5 elders. Newgate and Shaki, flanking Yulo. After hearing Yulo's words, I slightly strengthened my perception and noticed it as well. The aura of the 5 elders is a little weird. Golden Lion Shaki smashed it, and said in surprise with a look of surprise. The 5 elders below are obviously those 5 familiar old guys. But the stronger aura made Shiki feel as if he were 5 different people. Shiki is right. These 5 old guys, no matter how hard they train, they can't improve to such a high level. Newgate squinted his eyes, but his gaze was very sharp, trying to see through the 5 elders completely. However, no matter how you look at it, these 5 old guys are the familiar 5 elders. This is world government, the foundation of 800 years. Yulo's brows wrinkled and relaxed, his eyes flashed, and he murmured to himself. Not only did his injuries heal, but his own strength also improved significantly. He, Shiki and Newgate were all surprised, although the aura exuded by the 5 elders has become much stronger than before. But this kind of smell makes Yulo and the others feel very strange. Linlin and Kaido, on the other hand, looked solemn. The 2 of them could sense that the 5 elders had become stronger. However, the strange feeling was not felt. Yulo found that Rox showed no concern for the changes in 5 elders, so he had no choice but to shake his head. Rox, you're finally here. The old man with glasses pushed up his glasses and showed a triumphant smile. In order to lure out Rox, the 5 elders spared no effort and brought 50 celestial dragons. 50 celestial dragons, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, there's no way Rox won't come. But now that you're here, stay forever. The old man with glasses changed the topic, the smile on his face changed, and a hint of sadness appeared. At this time, the frightened celestial dragons, seeing the support of the 5 elders, suddenly became arrogant and domineering again. You despicable pirates, how dare you prevent a sacrifice to the god of creation? Kong, capture them quickly and sacrifice them all to the great god of creation. The celestial dragon's stupid behavior made the 5 elders and marines look very ugly. These idiots. At the critical moment of the confrontation between the 2 armies, Garp was directly beaten by celestial dragons and was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Sometimes, a bunch of pig teammates can beat your defense. As it happens, these celestial dragons are just a bunch of pig teammates. Celestial Dragon's ears were so sharp that he immediately heard Garp's complaints. How dare that marine Garp insult the celestial dragons? Kong, what are you doing standing still? Catch him too. In the blink of an eye, the target changed from pirate to Garp. For celestial dragons, there is no difference. Shut up. The old man in a suit's violent temper was immediately vented, and his cold eyes burst out. Suddenly, celestial dragons turned pale and was frightened by the old man in the suit. They all closed their mouths tremblingly and stopped barking everywhere like wild dogs. Ha 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 ha, these celestial dragons are just a bunch of idiots. You're such a noble person in the world. You're just wasting your air while you're still alive. Shiki, John, Newgate, laughing. Looking at the celestial dragons, he looked like he was looking at a bunch of idiots. On the eve of the battle between the 2 armies, the mentally retarded celestial dragons actually ordered Kong to capture the marine who was protecting them. This scene is so ironic, probably only the celestial dragons can do such a thing. Ha 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 ha, you claim to be a noble of the world, but you turn out to be a bunch of rubbish. Children, clean up the garbage in the sea, don't let them pollute the sea. Rox sneered, raised his head and shouted. The next moment, waves of sound resounded throughout the Valley of Gods. Kill the celestial dragons, clean up the trash. Kill the celestial dragons, clean up the trash. Kill the celestial dragons, clean up the trash. I saw countless clods of soil falling from the sky, densely packed, floating behind Yulo and others. On every clod of soil stood a pirate, shouting in high spirits. Looking around, it looked like locusts crossing the border. There were tens of thousands of people, occupying half of the sky. When this scene appeared, the arrogant celestial dragons were scared to death. Suddenly a large number of pirates and 10,000 elite marine soldiers appeared, and they couldn't help but become nervous. The whole army is ready for war. Kong let out a long roar, and his rich voice spread throughout the audience. Scandium! 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 The bodies of the marine soldiers all shook, and in unison, their weapons were unsheathed. The soldiers controlled the fort, turning the dark muzzles. The muzzles of 1,000 forts were all pointed towards the sky. All the elite soldiers of Marine confront the elite pirates of Rock's Pirate. Except for the high-end combat power, the numbers of both sides are basically the same. In the sky, there is a huge suspended island, and a dense patch of dirt where the crew stands. On the ground, there are also a large number of naval headquarters, and 1,000 pitch-black cannon muzzles. As the two sides were at war with each other, the air seemed to freeze. Neither the marine soldiers nor the pirate crew dared to act rashly without receiving orders to fight. However, no matter who it is, they are ready to fight at any time. The pirates suppressed their excitement and secretly mobilized all their strength. Marine soldiers stood guard in front of the fort, ready to fire cannonballs at any time. The celestial dragons, who were so domineering not long ago, are about to start a war. They all jumped and retreated towards the back of Marine. Rock's eyes shifted from celestial dragons to 5 elders. Not only those celestial dragons, but also these old guys will die here today. Rox looked at the 5 elders, murderous intent blooming in his eyes. A sound of scandium. The sword is unsheathed and pointed at the 5 elders. The 5 elders were silent, but their faces were extremely solemn. Kong, Herman, Quincy and others silently took off their cloaks of justice and threw them on the ground. Rox finished speaking. The pirates shouted excitedly. Under Shiki's control, the floating clods of soil began to fall. When he was halfway down, Kong's eyes narrowed and he immediately shouted. Fire. 1,000 forts were ready to go. After hearing the order to fire, the cannon ejected and exploded. Boom. 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 1,000 artillery shells came in volley like raindrops. At this moment, the falling clod of soil just entered the shooting range. The marine soldier looked at this scene with a little excitement in his eyes. 1,000 shells were fired, and the people of Rock's pirate would suffer casualties. Although the elite pirates in front of them all mastered observation hockey and armament hockey. But in the face of a covering blow, it is impossible to remain intact. In this way, the enemy's strength was reduced, and they gained an advantage in the subsequent battle. However, this group of pirates did not panic. Still shouting excitedly, waving weapons wildly. There was no other reason, it was just because Yulo, Rox and others were standing in front of them. The pirates have great trust in the strength of the captain and officers. Facing 1,000 artillery shells, they might really suffer a lot of casualties. But Captain Rox, Officer Yulo and others dealt with it easily. As expected, Rox snorted coldly. HMPH, Kong, you are still like this, just engaging in useless tricks. The next moment, Rox's robes were automatically moved without any wind, and a ferocious beast like aura erupted directly. Conqueror's hockey is unleashed. A crimson air current emerged and swept towards Marine. In midair, 1,000 cannonballs were being fired. The scarlet airflow passed by, and Conqueror's hockey seemed to be real. The thrust of 1,000 cannonballs disappeared, like a flat boat drifting with the current. Conqueror's hockey carried the cannonball and swept towards the Marine on the ground. The Marine soldiers, who were full of expectations, suddenly became panicked. What? What happened? The shells are flying back. The Marine soldiers panicked, and 1,000 cannonballs hit them, causing them heavy casualties as well. Kong, who was giving the order, also changed his expression when he saw the cannonball turning a corner. Before he could react, the 5 elders on the side moved. It is also the Conqueror's hockey, released from the bodies of the 5 elders. The 5 auras united together and surged towards Rock's Conquerors. Boom. The 2 Conquerors' hockey confront each other in an instant. 1,000 cannonballs mixed in the middle exploded under the squeeze of the hedge. In an instant, flames shot up into the sky, and the explosion was deafening. 1,000 cannonballs exploded together, and the power produced was astonishing. Boom. Under the feet of the Marine soldiers, the ground in the Valley of Gods shook violently. The airflow generated by the collision of Conqueror's hockey carried the heat wave of the explosion and filled the sky with smoke, sweeping all around. This time, not only the Marine soldiers, but also the Rock's pirate people could not help but look panicked. If such a terrifying airflow hits them, it will definitely be enough for them. The airwaves that covered the sky and the sun swallowed everyone present. The sky above the Valley of Gods became dark. At this moment, many people gathered on the distant sea. Although there is little movement among the various forces at sea on the surface. But there are not a few people who hide in the dark and observe silently. They secretly received news of the celestial dragon's sacrifice from the underground world. There are 50 celestial dragons, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How could Rox give up? As a result, many strong men secretly followed the Marine fleet. Red, by Beloric Redfield. World Destroyer, Burndy World. Nose Song, Brook. And a few brave pirates, scouts of the underground world. Even the young one, Monkey D. Dragon, sneaked over. This is an unprecedented battle with more than 20 admiral battles. Rox, the overlord of the sea, leads Yulo, Newgate, Shiki and other legendary pirates to fight against the naval headquarters and 5 elders. As onlookers, they are absolutely not to be missed regardless of the outcome of the war. Redfield, World, Brook, Long and others looked at the Valley of the Gods with solemn eyes. On the battlefield not far away, as hockey broke out on both sides, 1,000 artillery shells exploded. A huge mushroom cloud rises like an island in the sky. Even though they were far away, they could still feel the dazzling fire. The smoke and fire drowned everyone on the island, but they could not take their eyes off the battlefield. Although the power of the explosion is powerful, it has little effect in this war. On the other side of the Valley of the Gods, Roger, Rayleigh and others were hiding behind the mountain, observing everything secretly, and had no plans to take action for the time being. If we take action rashly at this moment, the effect will not be ideal. The ideal effect can only be achieved when something is unexpected. At this time, the battlefield was filled with smoke. Boom. Boom. 2 impact sounds sounded. The smoke was everywhere and dispersed in the blink of an eye. Valley of the Gods battlefield, Rock's pirate, naval headquarters and 5 elders. The men and horses on both sides were revealed, all of them unscathed. Kong, Herman, Quincy et al. And Newgate, Shiki, Yulo et al. Keep your arms straight and push your palms forward. Not long ago, Marines and pirates showed off their weapons. An invisible defensive wall was released to withstand the airflow and debris generated by the shell explosion. On the battlefield, there is a bright future. The Conqueror's hockey on both sides are still colliding wildly. Rock's Conqueror's hockey is like a violent beast, running wildly. Conquerors of Rocks, 5 elders dare not be careless. The 5 elders who have played against him have a deep understanding of the strength of Rocks. Even if their strength has improved, they are still far behind Rocks. No one person, 2 people, or even 3 people are enough to compete with Rocks. Making a quick decision, the 5 elders came together and released Conqueror's hockey. Conqueror's hockey from 5 elders has reached advanced levels of strength. Despite this, with the combination of powerful players, Rock's top Conqueror's hockey was evenly matched. Although the power of the explosion disappeared, the ground beneath Marine's feet was still trembling slightly. The powerful air currents collided, causing airwaves to sweep across. Entrained with dust and gravel, sand and rocks flew for a while. The entire battlefield of the Valley of Gods is shrouded in Conqueror's hockey. 50 celestial dragons, weak in body and mind, all rolled their eyes and fainted on the ground. Pirates, CP0 members, marine soldiers, exposed to the terrifying collision of Conqueror's hockey. Most of the people persisted for a while and then fell to the ground unconscious. Only a few determined people, such as the Vice Admiral on the marine side and the captain on the pirate side, can still persevere. Kaido and Linlin, as well as the captain-level pirates, as well as Marine's Vice Admiral, insisted on resisting, but at the same time, they were inevitably shocked. The 2 parties' Conqueror's hockey are entangled endlessly, always hanging over everyone. This collision between conquerors has shaken their minds. Who would have thought that Newgate and Shiki would suddenly intervene? 2 more Conqueror's hockey fell from the sky suddenly. Carrying majestic momentum, it is blessed on Rock's Conqueror's hockey. Suddenly, on the Rock's side, Conqueror's hockey surged. It was as if countless ferocious beasts were galloping, crushing hard against 5 elders' Conqueror's hockey. In an instant, the pressure on the 5 elders increased dramatically, and the ground beneath their feet began to crack. Vice Admiral on Marine's side was caught off guard. The sudden mental shock shook their minds. Kong, Herman, Quincy, Sengoku, Garp and others all changed their expressions. They never expected that Conqueror's hockey's fight would turn into this situation. This level of Conqueror's duel has never happened on the sea. There was no time to think too much at this moment. If Rocks was on the side, Conquerors would crush the Marines. I'm afraid that the Marine soldiers have already been defeated before this battle has even begun. Sengoku, Admiral Quincy, took a step forward. Conqueror's hockey was also released and participated in the battle. Admiral Quincy is also a strong man who has awakened Conqueror's hockey. After Sengoku and Quincy released Conquerors, the shaken Vice Admiral slowly stabilized himself. The collision of Conqueror's hockey is still going on fiercely. The Conqueror's hockey shrouded the entire God Valley Island, gradually forming a pattern of 2 sides. It is divided into 2 parts from the center, scarlet airflow and dark purple airflow. Where the mad collision occurred, a dividing line was drawn. Conqueror's airflow surged for a long time, and the surrounding environment also changed. At this moment, the air currents collided, which was earth-shattering. The flying islands floating in the sky began to rise slightly under the surging air currents. On the land of the Valley of Gods, a large number of cracks appeared, crackling, and madness spread around. The surrounding trees were first bent and then broken at the waist. Even on the huge mountain behind the island, rocks rolled down. The seawater around the island set off huge waves, rushing towards the sea. Admiral Quincy, 5 elders, Sengoku, supporting conquerors, doesn't look very good. Because, in the hostile camp, Yulo had not taken action yet and looked at them with a smile on his face. Kong's face was gloomy and he was thinking silently. At the moment, only Jean, Roger and others are involved. Normally, Roger and the others would have already arrived. At the same time, Roger, Rayleigh and others also reached the limit of their patience. If you continue to watch, wait until the Marine elite falls to the ground. This time the war was lost without a fight. It was when Kong, Roger and others had their idea born. Roger, I really didn't expect you to be so able to hide. If we don't take action, I'm afraid we won't have a chance. Yulo's voice resounded throughout the Valley of Gods. Then, wearing a robe, there was no wind. Since the Battle of the Valley of Gods is unavoidable, Yulo can only reduce the probability of Rock's death to the greatest extent possible. Shiki, Newgate, and Rox, they don't know, how could Yulo not know? The elite of the Roger pirates will also participate in this battle. What if they were caught off guard after a fight with Marine and 5 elders? There is absolutely no benefit to the Rox pirate side. The future pirate king Roger, as well as Rayleigh, Jabba, Bullet and others on the ship, are a huge potential threat. Roger and others must show up before the war begins. And this moment is a good opportunity. Kong was thinking and was shocked when he heard Yulo's words. This Yulo actually noticed that Roger and others were hidden. Now it seems that there is no point in continuing to hide. Roger and others hiding behind the mountain also heard Yulo's words. Roger, I don't know where Yulo got his confidence. But if we don't take action, I'm afraid those Marine soldiers will all fall under conquerors. Rayleigh's eyes narrowed, feeling a little confused. This Yulo not only discovered them, but also expected them to take action. However, given the current situation, there was no time to think about this. Rayleigh, Jabba, and Bullet all looked at Roger. Roger thought for a moment and decided to take action immediately. Take action. He had decided to take action just now, but was delayed by Yulo. On the battlefield, Silver Axe, Ochaku and other cadres couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat and looked at Yulo in unison. Yulo is extremely powerful, second only to Captain Rox. He would never say such words without reason. Thinking of this, even Shiki Newgate couldn't help but frown. According to Yulo's words, Roger will also be involved in their battle with Marine. But what did Roger want to do when he got involved in this war that had nothing to do with him? Do you want to help Rock's pirate deal with Marine and 5 elders? Impossible, absolutely impossible. As soon as the idea arose, it was quickly dismissed. Then there is only one possibility left, to help Marine and the 5 elders, deal with Captain Rox and them. If this is the case, it would be quite stressful. Thanks to Yulo, he can still laugh. The conquerors' hockey on both sides continued to tangle and collide. The sweeping scarlet and dark purple airflow had already scraped the ground bare. As expected. Yulo finished speaking. A moment passed. From the mountain behind, a dozen figures sprang out. Within a few breaths, we arrived at the battlefield. The 4 leaders were Roger, Rayleigh, Jabba, and Bullet. The remaining dozen or so people on Roger's ship are also the elite of the elite. The situation was extremely urgent at the moment, so Roger and the others immediately stepped into the Marine camp without further ado. Neither the Marines nor Rox had time to react to the sudden change. In a flash of lightning, Roger, Rayleigh, Jabba, and Bullet all took a step forward, their bodies full of majestic momentum. Released Conqueror's hockey, blessed the dark purple hockey, and pressed towards the scarlet hockey. In an instant, Conquerors surged on Marine's side. The dark purple airflow became extremely huge and crashed towards the rocks crazily. The middle line that was originally maintained moved quickly towards the direction of the pirates. And Kaido and Linlin saw all this. After Yulo's words came out, the two became highly vigilant. Facing Roger, Rayleigh and others, they reacted instantly to the sudden attack. The two came to Shiki and others, and 2 Conquerors' hockey swept out. With the help of the Scarlet Conquerors, hockey's power increased a bit, barely blocking the opponent's crushing attack. However, the Conqueror's hockey released by Kaido and Linlin was much weaker than Roger and the other 4. Although he barely resisted, the dark purple haki still rolled towards the pirates at a slow speed. However, the sober pirate did not panic about this. That's because Yulo, the strongest cadre, hasn't taken action yet. Feeling the expectant glances around him, Yulo couldn't help but grin. It seems that once I take action, I will suppress the entire crowd. Yulo's inner thoughts flashed away, and he turned his gaze to marine below. The pupils of the 5 elders, Kong, Sengoku, Roger and others suddenly shrank, and they had a bad feeling. A black light flashed in Yulo's eyes, and black air flowed around him. Looking down at the marines from the air, they looked like a demon king coming out of the abyss. The top conqueror's haki came out of his body and rushed toward the marine below. Sengoku and Roger, feeling such a vast and majestic haki, suddenly turned pale with shock. How can it be? Top conquerors, Yulo's conqueror's haki is no worse than Rock's. The 5 elders' expressions changed dramatically, and they even shouted bad. Rock's conqueror's haki, they have experienced it personally. Only the 5 of them can compete with Rock's and Conqueror's haki. Conqueror's haki in black, blending into the scarlet air. In an instant, the scarlet airflow turned into black and red. The black and red haki domain swept forcefully in all directions. The dark purple haki domain was beaten like a child. Conqueror's haki on Rock's side overwhelmingly destroyed the dark purple haki. Boom. 5 elders, Sengoku, Quincy, Roger and others, Conqueror's haki collapsed. The mental shock made them feel dazed and staggered back. The black-red physical airflow even knocked Vice Admiral to the ground. On the battlefield of the Valley of Gods, this Conqueror's haki was like a nuclear bomb exploding. The airflow spreading out from all directions swept wildly against the ground, like plowing a field. Wherever it passed, the ground cracked, soil surged, and gravel flew. Even the big mountain in the distance was severely impacted. As a clicking sound appeared, there was a faint tendency to crack. Some cliffs could not withstand the impact, and rocks rolled down. The entire Valley of Gods was shaking violently. The black and red conquerors instantly covered the Valley of the Gods. However, it did not stop. Instead, it swept through the surrounding sea area like a broken bamboo. Boom. 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 Substantial airwaves hit the sea. Suddenly, there was a huge wave. The huge waves on the sea surged in all directions with the Valley of the Gods as the center. On the sea in the distance, people from various forces watching the battle turned around and retreated. Among these people, there are many demon fruit powers. In a situation where strong people gather together, it would be very bad if the body is stained with seawater and falls into a state of weakness. This unprecedented confrontation between Conqueror's haki. In the end, Rock's pirate defeated the marine side overwhelmingly. I didn't expect that at such a young age, Yulo's Conqueror's haki would be as good as Rock's. The equally young Monkey D. Dragon was deeply shocked when he saw Yulo releasing Conqueror's haki on the battlefield of the Valley of Gods in the distance. The reason why he secretly came to witness this battle without telling his father Garp. In addition to the attraction of this war itself, the most important thing is to see Rox and Yulo, the 2 top combat powers. Needless to say, Rox has dominated New World for many years, and his strength is unquestionable. Monkey D. Dragon, what is really curious is the young Yulo. Is there any rumored combat power second only to Rox? How could a person who was younger than him be so strong? He claims to be extremely talented, but he is somewhat skeptical. But now, after seeing it with his own eyes, his doubts were dispelled. When his Conqueror's haki, comparable to Kaido, Yulo's Conqueror's haki is no longer weaker than Rox. It was completely beating him up, and he could only look up. The blue flame sword god Yulo, the top Conqueror's haki, is completely incompatible with the strength he showed that day. It seems that the strength Yulo showed when he killed 50,000 dead soldiers was far from his true combat power. With Admiral combat power, Redfield can be considered a strong man on the sea. Seeing the scene on the battlefield in the Valley of Gods, he couldn't help but think of what happened with Yulo in the Kingdom of Flowers. With the top Conqueror's haki, Yulo could stun 50,000 dead soldiers at that time. But Yulo chose to use real damage to kill the warriors, confident in his own strength. The combat power Yulo exerted at that time was enough to crush him. My worldview has collapsed. Why do I feel like Rox Pirate is stronger than Marine and 5 Elders? Haha. Does it matter what you think? Haven't you seen Marine and the 5 Elders join forces with the pirate Roger? The people sent by other forces also looked shocked. Originally, I just came to watch the battle and collect information about the battle situation. Who would have thought that before the fight even started, just the collision of conquerors would make their hearts tremble, which was completely beyond everyone's expectation. And Marine and the 5 elders actually chose to join forces with the pirates. How afraid of Rock's pirate? Could it be that the 5 elders personally took action and combined with the entire combat power of Marine, they couldn't defeat the Rock's pirate? At the same time, on the battlefield of Valley of Gods, the aftermath of Conqueror's hockey has finally dissipated. Before the battle even started, the Valley of the Gods had already become a mess. Rox looked at the 5 elders with contempt. Then under the ugly faces of the 5 elders, with Newgate, Yulo and others, slowly fell to the ground. Silver Axe, Ochaku, John, Kaido, Linlin and others also landed on the ground one after another, looking at the 5 elders and Marine side with cheerful expressions. Yulo. Kong's face was gloomy and he gritted his teeth in anger. He looked at Yulo fearfully, with a flash of fear in his eyes. Now, even he can't see through Yulo. Originally, their Conqueror's hockey was steadily beating Rock's pirate. But Yulo released Conqueror's hockey, and they were defeated in an instant. Even if he managed to resist for a while, he failed. Sengoku, Garp, Roger and others came to the front again. Although the impact of Conqueror's hockey is not small, it can't cause any real damage, it just makes them take a few steps back. However, the war has not started yet, and the failure of Conqueror's collision will shake the morale of the army to some extent. Thinking of this, they subconsciously look behind them. In an instant, Sengoku and others' expressions froze slightly. Except for a few, Vice Admiral stayed awake and managed to hold off Conqueror's hockey. The remaining 10,000 Marine soldiers fainted and fell to the ground. Some don't even know where the diffused airflow has rushed them. It was the 5 elders who deliberately protected the group of celestial dragons. 50 celestial dragons, lying motionless. For a moment, Sengoku and others, and even Kong, felt extremely angry. However, the situation in front of me can only be tolerated for the time being. Silver Axe saw Kaido on the side, frowned and shook his head, then patted Kaido on the shoulder. With Kaido's Conqueror's hockey, it's still a bit reluctant to participate in this collision. Kaido rubbed his eyebrows and slowly calmed down. Only then did he realize that there was a gap between him and the cadres, and he still needed to work hard to catch up. Kaido came to his senses and glanced around the battlefield. First found Marine on the opposite side, and only a few people were awake. Unconscious people were scattered in all directions, and many soldiers were missing. Even behind him, except for the stronger captain. The same goes for the other pirates, who all fell into a coma. However, fortunately, the pirate behind him was not attacked and lay still where he was. Damn it, we all took action, but we didn't expect it to be blocked. Jabba cursed and vented his dissatisfaction. Roger and Rayleigh's expressions suddenly changed. Even the weaker elite crew members they brought with them fainted and fell to the ground. What Yulo said not long ago does make some sense. If not on Marine, bless Conqueror's hockey. The impact will only become more violent, and even Vice Admiral will be delirious. Ha 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 ha, 5 elders, Kong, is that all? On the pirate side, Rox stood at the front, laughing wildly with a stern look on his face. He was very happy to be able to win this war before it even started. The highlight was Yulo's Conqueror's hockey, which was a huge surprise for Rox. Conqueror's hockey of this level is probably not weaker than him in strength. Rox is even more confident about this war. Rox, if we don't fight to the end, the outcome will not be known. The leader, the old man with glasses, although his face was not good looking, he looked cheerful and fearless. The remaining 4 old men, as well as Kong, Roger and others, had fighting spirit rising in their hearts and murderous intent in their eyes. Today we must kill the celestial dragons, whoever dares to block them will be killed. Rock's eyes were full of murderous intent, and he pulled out the long knife with a clang. Following the order, the sober pirate roared. Kill the celestial dragons! Kill the celestial dragons! Kill the celestial dragons! Silver Axe, Ochaku, John, gearing up. The moment Rox gave the order, he rushed out. Kaido, Charlotte Linlin, led the captain-level pirates and followed closely towards Marine. Facing the pirates led by Silver Axe, Ochaku, John, and Kaido, Linlin, who took the lead. Not to be outdone, Marine launched a counterattack in an instant. Kaido, Linlin and others rushed directly to the Marine camp. However, Silver Axe, Ochaku, and John were in the process of charging. Suddenly changed direction and pointed the finger at the celestial dragons. Killed the group of celestial dragons who were unconscious on the ground. 50 celestial dragons are simply more exciting than getting treasure. The murderous intent in John's eyes shined like never before. The thought of being able to slay 50 celestial dragons made him extremely emotional. Silver Axe and Ochaku also had killing intent in their hearts, and the three of them rushed towards the celestial dragons. However, everyone on Marine's side is strong and expert. How could the three of Silver Axe harm the celestial dragons? It was at this moment that three strong winds struck. It was Rayleigh, Jabba, and Bullet. The three figures broke through the wind and blocked the path of the Silver Axe trio. Rayleigh, Jabba, Bullet, Silver Axe, Ochaku, and John stopped and looked at Rayleigh, their faces gradually becoming serious. The three people in front of them are not easy to deal with. Long before Yulo joined the pirate group, he had fought against Rayleigh and others. Even though they are all in their 30s, they are much younger than them. However, in terms of strength, it is not weak at all. We are old rivals and we won't let you get past us. Rayleigh was holding a long knife with a solemn expression on his face. There was a bit of cold light on the blade, exuding a sharp sword intent. Jabba and Bullet kept their spirits high. One was armed with double axes and full of fighting spirit. The other was bare-handed and covered by hockey. Although they are confident in their own strength, the three Silver Axes opposite are veteran experts after all, so they have to be cautious. We are all pirates, but I didn't expect you to protect the celestial dragons. Ochaku didn't hide the disgust on his face, and then raised the giant sword in his hand. Although the competition among pirate groups is also quite fierce. But the other pirate groups were watching silently. The pirate group in front of them must be the leader and participate in the war. And, what's more, they cooperate with people from world government and marine. Together they will deal with the Rocks pirate, who is also a pirate. We are willing to be dogs, but there is nothing we can do about it. Silver Axe holds the axe in one hand, and the lightning on the axe blade dances. What Roger, Rayleigh and others did not only made him unable to understand, but also disgusted him from the bottom of his heart. Humph, there's no need to talk nonsense. Different ways don't work together. Bullet snorted and covered armament hockey with both arms. Being warlike by nature, he couldn't wait any longer. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his fist and took the lead to kill. Seeing Bullet take action, Rayleigh and Jabba were not far behind. The moment they took action, Silver Axe, John, and Ochaku came directly towards them. The stronger Rayleigh and Silver Axe collided with each other. Ochaku waved his giant sword, and Jabba's two-handed axe struck clangingly. The relatively weak ones are the young Bullet and the cadre John. One is powerful in physical skills and has great abilities, and the other is grandmaster in swordsmanship and spearmanship. Both sides took action together, and the battle officially began. Rayleigh's swordsmanship is sharp and flexible, constantly slashing at the Silver Axe. Although the Silver Axe is not flexible enough, the lightning on the axe blade is quite fierce and domineering. For a time, Rayleigh and Silver Axe were fighting back and forth. Ochaku and Jabba, axe blades and giant swords, directly confront each other. Bullet relies on his physical skills and intends to fight in close quarters. John saw through this and slashed and blocked the bullet to prevent Bullet from getting close. It looked like a turbulent battle, but in fact, everyone on both sides still had some room to spare. On the other side, Kaido and Linlin led a group of pirate captains. In the marine camp, there were 10 vice admirals in total, restraining Kaido, Linlin, and a group of pirate captains. Kaido and Linlin were each resisting a marine at the peak of vice admiral. Facing the strong players at the top of vice admiral, Kaido and Linlin did not fall behind. Even as time passed, Linlin gained the upper hand. However, things are not going well for the pirate captains. Marine has 10 vice admirals, 2 top vice admirals, 3 elite vice admirals, and 5 ordinary vice admirals. Excluding the 2 top vice admirals, there are 3 elite vice admirals, plus 5 ordinary vice admirals, fighting against 10 pirate captains. Among these pirate captains, only one has the strength to reach the elite vice admiral level. The remaining 9 people are just ordinary vice admiral level strength. Although there are 2 more people, it will not lead to a direct defeat. However, due to the disparity in strength, it was quite difficult to fight, and he was constantly being suppressed by Marine. On Marine's side, Kong, 5 elders and others are all secretly paying attention to these 2 local battlefields. Vice Admiral suppressed the pirates and Rayleigh and the other 3 also played steadily. This kind of fighting rhythm is much more enjoyable than the defeat not long ago. Upon seeing this, Roger and Garp's originally depressed mood suddenly subsided a bit. At this time, A flash of light flashed in Sengoku's eyes, and he winked at Zephyr. Zephyr on the side narrowed his eyes, nodded, and jumped out. Whoosh. Zephyr activated his razor, turning it into a trail. He rushed directly into a battlefield and took action without saying a word. Boom. Silver Axe quickly resisted the sudden attack. A sudden surge of force forced him to take 7 or 8 steps back. Silver Axe stabilized his body and looked next to Rayleigh. The person who suddenly took action was none other than Marine's Zephyr. Zephyr, damn it, are you bullying the few with more? Silver Axe frowned deeply, his face became very ugly, and he said angrily for a moment. However, this does not mean that Silver Axe is afraid. Facing the siege of Rayleigh and Zephyr, Silver Axe rushed over directly. Strike first, attack with all your strength, and barely resist for a while. Slowly, with 1 against 2, they fell into a disadvantage. Damn Marine. It's so difficult. After this scene happened, both Ochaku and John wanted to get rid of their opponents and rushed to support Silver Axe. It's just that Jabba and Bullet entangled them so tightly that they couldn't escape. In the current situation, Marine has the upper hand on both battlefields. Gu la la la, it's time to take action. Whitebeard Newgate laughed and waved the cloud cutter in his hand, preparing for a fight. After 2 months of hard training, I mastered the newly developed abilities. He is very confident in himself and can fight 1 against 2 in a short period of time. Gia ha ha ha, Newgate, you are too slow. Shaki, come first. Newgate was just about to take action when Golden Lion Shaki saw this and took the lead in killing him. The whole person rose into the air and swooped down towards Marine. The Sakura 10 and dead trees in his hands started dancing wildly. Lion. Thousand Slice Valley. Dozens of golden slashes fell from the sky, covering the Marines below. However, everyone in Marine is a strong admiral. Looking at the slashes above their heads, they all had expressions on their faces. Admiral Quincy took 1 step forward, using his ability to transform into a half-animal, and his body expanded rapidly. His hands and feet turned into dragon claws, and the 2 dragon wings on his back tore through his clothes and burst out of his body. Roar. There was a roar. Golden Lion Shaki, I'm here to meet you. Quincy's dragon wings spread out and his figure rushed forward. Armament hockey, covering both wings. He slapped Golden Lion Shaki hard, and the invisible armament hockey hit him. In addition, a tornado-like airflow was formed. This is a move that is a fusion of Quincy's Devil Fruit ability and armament hockey. There is no focus in air combat, so this move is most suitable for use. Dozens of golden slashes hit the invisible barrier and dissipated instantly. The strong tornado generated by the vibration of armament hockey sweeps upward towards Shaki. Shaki laughed and showed no signs of panic. Gia ha ha ha, I can do this trick too. Lion Majesty Fuzemaki. Facing the oncoming tornado, Shiki's figure did not retreat but advanced. The Sakura 10 in the hand pointed downwards with the dead wood. Suddenly, the airflow reversed and the wind blew violently. The surrounding air flows rapidly, forming an air current lion. Suddenly blocking the top of the tornado. The collision of the 2 airflows creates a larger airflow. Bang. The air exploded, the airflow lost its support and scattered in all directions. The 2 air currents are superimposed, and the airwave has a strong momentum. Quincy, who rushed straight up, paused in the air. Shaki activates the Lion Fruit ability and uses the thrust brought by the airwaves to quickly rise to high altitudes. Lion Fruit's ability, air combat, has advantages. Although Quincy's Feng Shun Pterosaur is equally fast, not inferior to Piao Piao's ability. But in terms of flight flexibility, it is not as good as Piao Piao ability. Now that you have chosen your opponent, you must fight to the end. Quincy's dragon wings trembled violently, and his figure suddenly climbed up rapidly, chasing Shaki in the sky. Gu la la la, this guy Shaki is not very strong, but he is faster. At this time, Newgate, the old enemy, did not forget to make a few remarks. Let Shaki take the lead, let's see what happens next. Newgate was already ready and jumped up holding the Kong Yunchi. The sword energy surged from the blade, slashing out from top to bottom. 1 person and 1 sword, Haki Wushuang slashed straight at the Marines. Your opponent can only be me. Sengoku's face was cautious, but his eyes were full of fighting spirit. Newgate. After an angry shout, his whole body shone with golden light, and his palms were filled with golden light. Then, too, he jumped up. Raising his golden palm high, he pushed towards Kong Yunki's blade. Gu la la la. Sengoku! Nugate shouted excitedly in response to his old rival. The two figures were getting closer and closer. Finally, in midair, the bodies intertwined. Clang! The golden palms and the white blades of the sword touched each other. With the two people at the center, a large amount of impact force and sword energy spread in all directions. The blade and palm, as well as the surrounding air, exploded. It was a tentative move, and no one could do anything about it. Come again! Sengoku, Nugate, shouted simultaneously. The fierce struggle between Sogumo's blade and Sengoku's left hand continued. The two waved their arms again, golden light pulsed in one palm, and air enveloped the fist. Shockwave! Shockwave! The two men shouted loudly at the same time. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, the palms and fists smashed towards each other, and the air was cut. Boom! Click! Palms and fists didn't even collide. Shockwaves and shockwaves have collided together. Golden light bloomed, and the air cracked like a spiderweb. A terrifying and violent energy fluctuation raged across the entire Valley of Gods battlefield. Boom! There was an earth-shattering sound. The Valley of Gods shook violently. On the mountain on the island, the cracks began to spread again. The ground below collapsed, and countless rubble fell from the bottom of the flying island in the sky. Violent energy fluctuations caused the air around Nugate and Sengoku to stop flowing. The figures of the two people were stuck in midair, surrounded by golden light and white energy. Shockwaves and shockwaves caused widespread damage. The entire Valley of the Gods was shaking, but Yulo, Rox, 5 elders and others remained unmoved. On the battlefield, the two sides faced each other. Invisibly, there is an undercurrent surging. Yulo and Rox faced 9 people including 5 elders, Kong, Herman, Garp, and Roger. The 5 elders, Roger and others all had serious expressions on their faces. Regardless of the marine side, Admiral has a lot of strength. However, at this moment, they did not dare to relax at all. Because the two people they faced were strong men who had surpassed the Admiral level. He fought against 3 admirals and easily killed one of them, even though he didn't even use his full strength. A talented monster who has made rapid progress. As early as 2 months ago, he was able to kill Ilot and defeat the combined strength of 4 admirals who were not in their prime. These two extremely powerful men, even if they are not afraid of a fight, are not 100% confident. It can only be said that he is determined to eliminate Yulo and Rox even if he dies. Yulo crossed his arms and stood side by side with Rox. The two faced 9 people and seemed to be weak. However, in terms of momentum, it is not bad at all. Ha 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 ha, Captain Rox. Looking at them, they seem to be very afraid of us. Yulo sneered and looked at the 5 elders, Kong and others. These old foxes, each one smarter than the last, can delay for a while. At present, Marine has the advantage in the 2 battlefields and is waiting to kill the Silver Axe and Kaido groups. Huh, rabble. Yulo, how many do you want to hit? Rox looked contemptuously, snorted first, and then said while talking and laughing. Such behavior is not at all like a captain's. It was all a joke to Yulo. No matter how many people there are, since we want to kill the celestial dragons, we will kill anyone who stands in our way. The corners of Yulo's mouth curled up slightly, revealing an evil smile, and his words were full of arrogance. Rox said nothing, and Yulo took a step forward. Qinglian's heartfire rose up and wrapped his body in it. Yulo held his right hand empty, and the green fire flowed down. 1001 Nights appeared in Yulo's hands with a dark and cold light. Rox stood next to Yulo, slightly behind him. Looking at Yulo, who was surrounded by green fire, he didn't dare to be careless under his calm appearance. Although he and Yulo are extremely powerful, but, at the end of the day, there are only 2 people. The 5 elders, Kong, Herman, Garp and Roger on the opposite side are no less powerful than Nugate. This battle depends on Yulo and him. As long as Yulo exerts his strength, he can match Conqueror's haki. Then he and Yulo are enough to compete with the 5 elders and 9 other people in front of them. Followed by Shiki and Nugate, the strength of these 2 people is more than shown. But whether they can get rid of the enemy depends on the performance of the 2 people. While Rox was thinking, Yulo had already taken action. I saw the black sword turning slightly, and the sharp sword intention rose into the sky. Just like the actual sword energy, at the bottom of the flying island in the sky, a ravine stretches for 1,000 meters. Everyone on the battlefield couldn't help but look at him sideways. Because this sword intention actually turned into sword energy. Green fire and swordsmanship, he's about to take action. Garp's expression changed drastically and he looked extremely solemn. He used observation haki to sense Yulo's aura, which was like an endless abyss with no bottom. Facing the monster genius who was making rapid progress, even if he practiced hard for 3 months, he still couldn't get a full picture. Herman looked at the blazing green fire, felt the sharpness of the sword, and subconsciously tightened his grip on the long sword. It was the fusion of green fire and sword intent that left him with indelible scars. Yulo, the blue flame sword god, he is much more powerful. The old man in white robe had an unusually gloomy expression. He was silent for a while and then spoke slowly. As a great swordsman who has fought against Yulo, I have some understanding of Yulo's strength and swordsmanship. 2 months ago, during the Marineford battle, Yulo's actual sword energy had not reached this level and could be transformed into actual sword energy out of thin air. There were 9 of us, 4 against Yulo and 5 against rocks. The leader, the old man with glasses, had an ugly face and said in a deep voice. Before he finished speaking, Yulo on the other side had disappeared. The next moment, Yulo's figure appeared briefly in the sky. Da Shensha. The black knife in his hand swung downwards, and a black-red sword energy shot out across it. The slashing attack that combines Conqueror's haki and sword energy is not only the sword energy that cuts through everything, but also contains the terrifying Kamui pressure. 4 of them take action, don't be careless, the old man with glasses shouted. The power of this sword was enough to threaten them. Whoosh, 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 Kong, Herman, the old man in white robe and suit, rushed forward immediately. The 4 of them took action with all their strength to resist the sword energy falling from the sky. However, at this time, Yulo's figure disappeared again. Not good. Celestial dragons. The expressions of the 4 Kong people suddenly changed. But the sword energy has already fallen, so I can only resist reluctantly. Yulo's figure kept leaving afterimages and quickly approached the celestial dragons. Kong and the 4 others were dragged for a few breaths by the black and red sword energy. The remaining 5 people were stopped by Captain Rocks. This gap is enough time to kill the celestial dragons. The expressions of the 3 old men below changed dramatically when they saw this situation, and they had no choice but to take action. Don't even think about it, Yulo. Rayleigh and Zephyr saw this and fought off Silver Axe. The 2 people's positions are just below. Covered with armament haki, Rayleigh and Zephyr arrived in an instant, intending to block Yulo's way. Just you 2. The mantis arm is like a chariot. Yulo's speed increased instead of decreasing, and the green fire on his left hand suddenly shot out. The wrath of the flame dragon. The tens of meters long green fire dragon quickly pounced on Rayleigh Zephyr. Roar. With the appearance of the green fire dragon, the Valley of Gods is like a scorching hell. The hot and boiling airwaves rippled like sound waves. When the flame dragon danced in the sky, it radiated to the entire sea area. At this moment, it's not just the Valley of Gods. Everyone within an unknown distance was bathed in the scorching heat. The green fire that transcends magma, the sword intent that turns into gas, the destructive power like a natural disaster. Despite this, he didn't use all his strength. How strong is he really? Monkey D. Dragon looked shocked and looked at the Valley of Gods battlefield without blinking. Yulo's swordsmanship and green fire firmly attracted the dragon's attention. Even his father, Vice Admiral Garp, was left behind. Hiss. At this temperature, I'll keep you warm. Taller than magma. What the hell is this Mera Mera fruit? Immediately, a high-temperature wave rolled in, and Berndi Wald took a breath of hot air. Suddenly, Wold felt that the temperature in his body had become hotter, and he shouted in disbelief. When he traveled to East Blue, he saw with his own eyes the scene of a volcano erupting and lava flowing across it. The temperature generated by a large amount of magma is not as high as the Mera Mera fruit. This is so damn unreasonable. Monkey D. Dragon, Nose Singer Brook, Redfield and others did not pay attention to these words. It doesn't matter if it's Mera Mera fruit or not, as long as it's strong enough, that's it. On the battlefield of Valley of Gods, Rayleigh and Zephyr's expressions changed when they faced the green fire dragon. Both of them have experienced or seen the power of Qinglian's earth core fire, and are fully aware of its horror. Rayleigh has always had a bald head, but it was because she was burned by a green fire that it was difficult for her hair to grow back. Zephyr also saw Vice Admiral Crane with his own eyes. He just passed by green fire and fell into a coma for 3 days due to dehydration. Yulo, on the other hand, has a devilish talent and has made rapid progress. In just a few months, he has become much stronger. However, Yulo is getting stronger, so why aren't they? Zephyr and Rayleigh couldn't help but look at each other. Both of them saw the determination to give it a try in each other's eyes. After months of hard training, the two of them didn't believe that they could stop Yulo's wrath of the flame dragon. Iron body steel. Zephyr's pitch-black body, wrapped by armament haki, suddenly emitted white mist, protecting the surface of the body. Rayleigh's whole body is also covered with armament haki, and she even uses the cultivation of a great swordsman to generate a sword energy to protect her body. Then, the two of them simultaneously released double armament haki, forming a defensive barrier. Facing the ferocious roaring green fire dragon head, he directly attacked without fear. On one side is the terrifying high-temperature flame attack, and on the other side is the layer-by-layer ultimate defense. In an instant, they collided together. First, the high-temperature hit. Rayleigh and Zephyr felt as if they were in hell, and even breathing became difficult. The next moment, the weapons were deployed, double defense barriers. There was a click and it shattered. How can it be? Rayleigh and Zephyr's eyes widened in disbelief. Senior armament haki, forming a double defense. In an instant, it was shattered by the green fire. The two of them were stunned and had no time to escape. The green fire dragon cleared the obstacle and swallowed the two of them instantly. Fortunately, at the critical moment, the two of them reacted. He quickly broke through the green fire and left the attack range. Rayleigh and Zephyr stepped aside, breathing heavily. The eyes he looked at Yulo were filled with fear and lingering fear. At this moment, Zephyr's iron body and Rayleigh's sword energy protection were long gone. If it had been a little longer at night, armament haki would have been burned to death. At that time, the physical body alone will be reduced to ashes in a matter of seconds. Even so, with dual abilities to protect the body, it was all very embarrassing. You still underestimate the gap between you and me. Yulo's face was calm. He left a word and continued to rush towards the celestial dragons. This sentence is not meant to be pretentious at all, it is just telling the truth. Rayleigh and Zephyr, despite their hard training, reached Admiral combat power. But compared to the 3 admirals, the current 5 elders are still a little bit behind. This slight gap, both in experience and accumulation, cannot be made up by physical strength. Zephyr, Rayleigh, Garp and Roger, seeing the old man injured, shouted eagerly and went to help. The pupils of the 3 old men below suddenly shrank. The strength shown by Zephyr and Rayleigh is equivalent to their previous strength. Even if the two of them worked together and their dual weapons were exposed, they would be broken open in an instant. He could only dodge in embarrassment, not daring to shoulder it from the front. You know, the wrath of the flame dragon, as far as they know. It's just Yulo's normal move. At this time, Yulo's way was blocked. Kong, Herman, the old man in white robe, the old man in suit. The 4 of them stood not far in front of Yulo. I didn't expect that with just one move, I lost a great opportunity. Yulo stopped and sighed helplessly. But there's nothing we can do about it, that's how the high-end battle situation is. Every second counts and every second counts. Although Rayleigh and Zephyr were defeated, they gave the celestial dragons a glimmer of hope. I didn't expect that the Marineford battle would earn you the title of Sword God. The old man in white robes held a long knife and looked directly at Yulo with squinted eyes. Yulo's swordsmanship is superb, he admits this. However, he somewhat disagreed with this title of Sword God. Haha. What's wrong, you're not convinced? Yulo sneered and grinned, full of disdain. In the majestic momentum, the sharp sword intent stabbed invisible. When the white-robed old man saw this, he was surrounded by sword energy and also erupted with sword intent. In an instant, a confrontation of wills. The old man in white robe flew backwards as if he had been hit hard. Seeing this, Kong and the other 3 hurriedly caught the white-robed old man. The collision of sword intentions in the air did not cause any real damage, but it also made him feel uncomfortable. A battle with Marineford will knock you into a coma. In the battle of the Valley of Gods, I will kill you here. Yulo moved, charging forward like thunder. The tip of the black knife danced with cold light. He stabbed straight at the white-robed old man. The distance between the two sides is not that far. Yulo's speed was instantaneous. The old man in white robe did not dodge and held the long knife in front of him. Clang. Sparks flew everywhere. The 2 swords collided, and the sword energy surged. Between each attack and defense, sword energy burst out. The old man in a suit, Kong, and Herman had no choice but to step aside to avoid the sharp attack. After a brief confrontation, Yulo suddenly exerted his strength. The sharp sword energy, packed with huge power, stabbed the long sword of the white-robed old man. In the hand of the old man in white robe, the blade of the sword flashed with cold light, blocking the incoming sword energy. The huge force coming from the blade caught him off guard and caused him to fly backwards. Yulo snorted coldly, holding a black knife and stepping forward. He had been paying attention to the situation. How could he not know what the old man in white robe was thinking? The four admiral forces can clearly work together. The old man in white robe insisted on stepping forward, trying to divert his attention. Regardless of the other three people, they have not taken action for the time being. They were looking for an opportunity to attack him with one attack. Yulo looked at the old man in white robe. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and a cruel smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Since you have to stand out, this will let you know what it means to be the first to stand out. The old man in white robe flew backwards. Yulo did not hesitate and chased after him. In an instant, an afterimage passed through Kong and the three of them, leaving them behind. This scene fell into the eyes of Kong, the old man in a suit, with a look of success on his face. Seeing this, the old man in white robe slowly stopped. Let's see, Yulo. He raised the long sword in his hand, his sword intent completely exploded, and his whole body was filled with sword energy. Whoosh. There was a sound of breaking wind, and the long knife was quickly slashed out. A white streak of pure sword energy slashed towards the pursuing Yulo. Yulo sneered, facing the sword energy. He did not dodge, nor did he take action. He looked at the old man in white robes as if looking at a fool. As his strength leapt forward, he became one of the most powerful. I'm afraid most people have forgotten that he is completely immune to pure physical attacks. When the sword energy was about to touch Yulo, he turned into a ball of green fire with a bang. The sword energy passed directly through the green fire and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Elementalized Yulo, green fire streaks across the sky. Where it was elementalized just now, there were little sparks left floating in the air. The next moment, Yulo appeared again. It was already on top of the old man in white robe. You also take one of my tricks. What a pity. Yulo mobilized Conqueror's Haki to bless this sword technique. Suddenly, a vast force of power pressed against the white-robed old man. The white-robed old man's face was heavy, and he began to be on high alert when Yulo became elemental. This is that move. Suddenly, his expression changed and he felt a little palpitated. He remembered this stab. It was not long ago that the four of them worked together to resist and wasted the sword. Although it felt quite easy at the time, it was the combined efforts of four people to resist it. Now, he had to bear the power of this sword alone. The pressure can be imagined. Conqueror's Haki is trapped in the aura of Daken's sword. It was like Mount Tai descending and hitting the old man in white robe. The old man in white robe quickly backed away again without even thinking about it. At the same time, the sword intention cooperated with Conqueror's and poured out crazily from the center of the eyebrows, fighting against the overwhelming pressure of Kamui. However, no matter how hard he retreated, he did not withdraw from the attack range of this knife. Moonwalk. The feet of the old man in white robes emitted white mist. He stepped continuously in the air, taking a step with each step. The sound of the air exploding will follow. In this way, the old man in white robe had a strong point in the air and raised his sword to block without fear. A clang. The sound of gold and silver clanging sounded. With such a hint of crispness, the blade of the black knife actually hit the old man's knife in white robe. On the two swords, the sword energy is fighting. With the two people at the center, there were a few sword energies scurrying around uncontrollably from time to time. The energy of Kamui was blocked, and the sword energy was also worn away. However, this sword fell from the sky, carrying a heavy force. The old man in white robe was directly slashed and flew out sideways. It crashed into a small mountain peak with a bang. Like a cannonball, the entire mountain was blown up and he was left bald. At the same time, behind Yulo, not far away, bang. Explosions resounded across the sky. A dazzling blue flame rose into the sky. The old man in the suit, Kong, and Herman did not dare to stay and quickly escaped from the fire. A few breaths ago, just when Yulo struck with a knife, Kong and the three of them found the right time. The three of them combined their powers to attack Yulo. The three of them did not hold back any opportunity that might severely damage Yulo. After approaching Yulo, it's time to take action. In the air, not so long ago Yulo, elemental Mars. Dots of stars were floating around Kong and the three of them. At this time, Mars shines. Noticing these little sparks, the three of them felt a little strange. No, Back away. Suddenly, there was a cry of surprise. Kong trembled and seemed to have thought of something. Herman, the old man in a suit, is not a fool either. After Kong reminded me, I immediately thought of it. However, at this moment, dots of cyan sparks have quietly bloomed. Small green flowers floated around the three of them. Is this a spark condensed by green fire? Herman swallowed, his voice trembling. Having been tortured by green fire, he knew the burning feeling of green fire. What the hell? What kind of fire control method is this? Even the old man in a suit was so frightened that he broke into a cold sweat. This kind of fire control method is really incredible. Without even realizing it, they were tricked. Immediately, armament hockey covered the whole body. The three of them activated their razors and quickly dodged in 3 directions. However, the 3 figures had just moved. Countless cyan sparks exploded instantly. Boom. A large amount of green fire spurted out, forming an explosive sea of fire. All this happened in an instant, and the speed of the 3 Kongs increased again. Whoosh. 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 3 people jumped out of the sea of fire. This guy's moves are so insidious. Kong looked ugly, took a deep breath, and gritted his teeth in frustration. Herman, the old man in a suit, had a gloomy face and was speechless. Haha, this is called bana flower, it must be quite comfortable. Yulo held the black knife and looked at the 3 Kongs with a playful smile. While speaking, the green fire on his left hand turned into sparks. This scene was full of provocation, and in the eyes of Kong and the others, their eyelids jumped with anger. However, thinking about Yulo's strength, he quickly felt relieved about what had just happened. The 3 of them were considered good, but they just made a mistake. On the other hand, the old man in white robe has not come up yet after being hacked away by a knife. The old man in the suit wanted to go down and take a look at the old man in the white robe. But Yulo stood in front of him, preventing him from acting rashly. The 3 old men below, Roger and Garp, were keeping an eye on the battle while confronting rocks. When the 3 old men saw this scene, their faces turned pale with shock. The strength of the 5 of them has been improved by Master Im using secret techniques. Not only does the combat power become stronger, but also the use of various abilities and achievements are sublimated. Even his old body has returned to its peak, although it still belongs to the category of Admiral combat power. But it is already at the peak of Admiral's combat power. Therefore, 5 Elders knows very well how terrifying it is to improve. However, Yulo actually struck the old man in white robe with a knife. This Yulo's strength may surpass rocks. The expressions of the 3 old men were changing, uncertain, and cold sweat broke out on their bodies. During the Marineford battle, Yulo was definitely not that strong. Even rocks didn't show this kind of strength at the time. It is true that rocks has something to hide, but they have also become a lot stronger. Even if rocks attacks with all his strength, he may not be able to chop him away with one strike. Garp and Roger on the side couldn't help but widen their eyes with shock when they heard the 5 elders' comments. This kind of evaluation and this kind of strength are really shocking. How strong does it have to be to surpass Rock's strength? Of that, Garp, Roger, has no doubt. First of all, they are all in the same boat, and there is no need for the 5 elders to lie to them. Secondly, Roger can sense the strength of 5 elders, Garp. Not to mention the 2 of them, they are much stronger than Kong. What kind of freak is this guy Yulo? Roger's face was gloomy and he muttered angrily. Why are all these cultivating freaks running to Rock's pirate? When Yulo was not strong, he just joined Rock's pirate, and he even tried to win over him a little bit. However, at that time, Yulo did not agree. There was another incident that led to this war. If I had known this, I should have tried to win over him more. If it were Rocks, there would be no Yulo. With their sides line up, it would be easy to eliminate the Rocks pirate. What kind of charm does that terrorist Rocks have? Regarding the elimination of Rock's pirate, Garp, who had the same idea as Roger, couldn't help but chimed in with gritted teeth. Garp has a righteous heart, and what he dislikes the most is what Rock's pirate did. Okay, don't say it's useless, keep an eye on Rocks. Among the 3 old men, the bearded old man frowned slightly and scolded in a low voice. These 2 guys are still too young. The current situation has been decided, what's the use of saying this? The rocks not far away offer a panoramic view of everything. Yulo's strength and the enemy's anxiety made him smile proudly. At this time, the broken mountains and smoke gradually dispersed in the distance. The old man in the suit looked closely and found that the old man in the white robe was fine. The next moment, his eyes changed, filled with murderous intent. Covered by armament haki, the razor under his feet was activated, directly stepping on the air. Like an arrow leaving the string, he waved his black fist and attacked Yulo in front. When the old man in the suit approaches, attack with all your strength as soon as he comes up. Yulo's expression remained calm. The green fire in his left hand was surging happily, and the black sword energy in his right hand was lingering. He stepped lightly and faced him head-on. The black blade slashed across, and the offensive of the old man in the suit was broken like paper. Immediately afterwards, Yulo was about to fight back. Admiral Herman moved quickly and came behind Yulo. He also used all his strength to strike at Yulo's back. Yulo had no choice but to turn his body to resist Herman's attack. Seeing this, the old man in a suit changed his moves and hit Yulo one after another. In a two-sided attack, Yulo used both hands, sword energy and green fire bursting out at the same time. The sword energy surged on one side, and the flames spewed out on the other. Easily neutralized the attack of the old man in the suit, Herman. At this moment, the old man in white robe rose into the sky. His white robe was much tattered. The impact of that knife was indeed not small, and blood surged when it smashed into the mountain. Fortunately, he was physically strong and at his peak, so he didn't cause any serious problems. As soon as the old man in white robe came up, he was feeling aggrieved and in urgent need of venting. Holding a long knife, he attacked Yulo and besieged Yulo together with the old man in a suit, Herman. In the air, 4 figures were constantly moving around. The sound of the jingle clashing and the roaring of the wind sounded one after another. Wherever it passes, green fire is blazing, the air is boiling, sword energy is raging, and haki collides. Yulo wields the sword with one hand and controls the green fire with the other. 1-on-3 combat, as fast as ultimate. 1 sword, 1 punch, 1 kick, close combat. When there is no duel, he is domineering with every move. All moves and skills are compressed, making a close collision extremely dangerous. A little carelessness, a single move, it is possible to suffer heavy losses. However, for Yulo, these are not that important. Because, at this moment, Yulo was at ease, not blushing or out of breath. On the other hand, the 2 old men and Herman's heart sank to the bottom when they saw such a situation. The 3 of them came together. Each of them didn't hold anything back, but they still couldn't do anything to Yulo. Yulo took his time and fought with the 3 people. The old man in the white robe and Herman were okay. They were great swordsmen, and haki blessed the blade. The old man in a suit was using his bare hands and all his skills were in one-body technique. After fighting for a while, the old man in the suit became more and more frightened. Whether it's Yulo's sword energy or green fire, it collides with his fist every time. He could feel the pain through armament haki. Either the sharp sting of the sword energy, or the high-temperature burning of the green fire. Gradually, the old man in a suit became a protective figure. Responsible for resisting Yulo's attacks. The old man in white robe, Herman, is in charge of the attack. But every attack, Yulo can easily resolve it. He is like an all-powerful god of war, with no shortcomings in terms of attributes such as strength and speed, as well as swordsmanship, physical skills, haki, and abilities. The 3 of them, Herman, couldn't find a single flaw and couldn't launch a decisive blow. During the battle, he could only fight with Yulo endlessly.